Hey everyone, it's your buddy back again with another exciting fanfic, which is what if Naruto was raised by ANBU as their little brother, Naruto X Ino Part 2. If you enjoy this story, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more fanfics like this. Now, let's dive right into the fanfic. It was a secret back then, but I am sure you three knew that Kushina was the previous Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi. Shuza and Shikaku nodded, but Inoichi only stared down at his hands. Through unknown circumstances during Naruto's birth, the Kyuubi was released. We had our suspicions, but our investigations led nowhere. Due to having the Kyuubi extracted from her after giving birth, Kushina was dying. Minato had to react quickly and seal the Kyuubi away, and the only available option was his newborn son. Shuza sighed and bowed his head. He always had to do the right thing, Minato. Yes, added Shikaku, and this is the main reason you hid him away. I did not originally plan to hide him away. Hiruzen sighed and puffed on his pipe. I originally was going to give him his mother's family name and have him live among our people, but my bastard advisor decided to go behind my back. The rumors, muttered Shikaku. Danzo spread the rumors about a Kyuubi Jinchuriki. The old man nodded. Yes, he did. After that, there was no way Naruto could have had a normal childhood in the village. They would have hated him, and possibly even attacked him. I could not take that risk. He sighed. I promised Kushina before she died that I would take care of Naruto, and I've done just that. By hiding him in a dungeon? Asked Inoichi darkly. Hiruzen regarded him coolly. No, in the ANBU barracks surrounded by people who love him more than anyone else. The three men looked at him in wonder. Hitaki Kakashi, Minato's last surviving student, practically raised Naruto himself. ANBU Commander Ryu looked over the boy's well-being ever since the day he was born. Just yesterday, when Naruto was playing with your daughter, Inoichi, his sisters baked him an entire table of snacks and food for his playdate. So, he's happy? Asked Inoichi. He's not locked away and trained as a Jinchuriki. Naruto has no idea about the Kyuubi, but he is being trained. Ever since he was a boy, he's been hounding his surrogate siblings to teach him things. I can happily say that Naruto has taken after his parents. He is as talented as Minato and as passionate as Kushina. In a few years' time, I can see Naruto becoming an essential part of Konoha. Does he know about his parents? Asked the Yamanaka. Yes, he does. Sarutobi leaned against his desk. He was raised as Uzumaki Naruto, but his parents were never hidden from him. Not everybody in the ANBU knows, but most people close to him have made the connection. It's not explicitly known, but it is the worst kept secret in the ANBU. Glancing over at Minato's portrait hung on the wall, not to mention that he could pass for an actual clone of his father. He looks exactly like Minato, and I mean exactly like him. The only thing he inherited from Kushina is his hyperactivity, which has since been calmed by Commander Ryu's training. Shuza smiled. I'd like to meet him. And you can, replied the Hokage. The fact that he's able to play at the park and enjoy the day with friends is an indication that he is no able to rejoin society. Will you let him join the academy? Asked Inoichi. He'll have friends. He's already met my daughter and I'm sure Shikamaru and Choji would welcome him into the group. Shikaku and Shuza nodded, but Hiruzen shook his head. No, Naruto is already far too advanced for the academy. He's already mastered the 3 basic ninjutsu and is well on his way to elemental training. Sending him to the academy will only hold him back. Shikaku smirked. He really is Minato's kid. His dream is to become Hokage, muttered the Sandaime with a smile, so he's inherited both his parents' dream. So, what's the plan here? Asked Inoichi. Have Naruto train with the ANBU until he's strong enough to actually join the ANBU. No, despite growing up in the barracks, Naruto lacks some qualities of becoming an ANBU member, not to mention he has absolutely no practical experience. He is a bright, happy, and cheerful boy without a shred of darkness inside him. If anything, he will thrive in our regular forces. The old man puffed on his pipe. I will wait until Naruto reaches the age of 12, at which point he will become a genin and be placed on a team. He will learn about teamwork, how to associate with comrades, and most importantly, gain some real-world experience. Then why not make him a genin now? Asked Shikaku. He is obviously skilled enough. He is in an integral part of his training right now, so I would rather him focus on that, to build a solid foundation. Also, when Naruto officially joins our ranks, I want him to take his father's name. The three men nodded along. That would put a huge target on his back, so before then, I need to be confident in his abilities. Rest assured, I won't waste his potential. As soon as he acquires enough experience and have shown leadership skills, I will promote him to a rank fitting of his skill. But we can still meet him, right? Asked Shuza. Yes, insisted the Hokage with a smile. Naruto is already quite close with little Ino-chan. Inoichi smiled at that and nodded. He asked me this morning for permission to play with her again next weekend, and of course I allowed it. I don't see why Shikamaru and Choji couldn't be there, too. You three and your wives could maybe pack some food and drinks and made a day of it. Inoichi nodded happily. Thank you, Hokage-sama. We will do just that. I'll take care of the food. Exclaimed Shuza. We'll take good care of the boy. Troublesome, but I can make the time for this. Shikaku shook his head with a smile. This is not what I expected this morning, but I look forward to meeting the kid. Ino-chan speaks very highly of him, added Inoichi with a smile. She showed me the storage seal he made for her. He really is quite talented for his age. Oh, so he is learning Fuinjutsu? Asked Shuza. The Sandaime nodded. Yes, Jiraiya has a long-term training plan for Naruto for just Fuinjutsu. He will inherit his father's notes when he improves enough, then his mother's notes when he finishes his father's. Well then, it seems our future is in good hands. Shikaku smirked. I was starting to worry. My son is far too much like me to actually take that hat from you, Hokage-sama. And after the whole Uchiha ordeal with Itachi, I was afraid you won't find a worthy successor. Inoichi and Shuza looked surprised, but Hiruzen only nodded. Indeed, but any real possibility is still yet to be seen. We will know for sure in a few years. Shikaku stood and his brothers followed. They all bowed to their leader. Thank you for your time, Hokage-sama, and for your honesty. Yes, Hokage-sama, thank you, added Inoichi. My wife and I will sleep easier knowing the boy is safe and is being taken care of. Shuza laughed. And you should join us next weekend, Hokage-sama. I'll have enough food prepared for an army. The Hokage chuckled. We'll see, Shuza. And you're all very welcome. I've been keeping this a secret for too long and I'm happy to finally tell the truth. I'm sure Minato and Kushina are looking down on us now and are very happy their old friends are looking after their son. Inoichi nodded. We will take good care of him, Hokage-sama. I promise. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. 12 puffs of smoke erupted beside Naruto, each revealing a clone. Each looked exactly like the original, with no imperfections or clear differences at all, much unlike his early attempts at the basic clone jutsu. If anything, Naruto found this clone variant to be much easier to use than the regular clone jutsu. It required much less chakra control. Any difficulty with it lay with the amount of chakra needed, and Naruto could barely feel a drain. Naruto smiled at his clones who all smiled back. This is so cool. As I said, it is not a hard jutsu to master. Commander Ryu stood in front of the small army of Chibi, his arms crossed. You still used more time than necessary to create only 12 clones, but we'll work on that as we proceed. What next, Commander? Asked the original Naruto, his clones all grinning and bouncing. Now to compartmentalize. He turned to the clones. You 7 from the left will continue with water walking. Do not stop until you manage to stand on water for more than 30 seconds. Once you've done that, you can work on running on water. We will continue to do this every day until you can effectively fight on water. The 7 clones nodded, dismissed. Hi, Commander. The 5 of you remaining clones will head to the ANBU library. There you will each choose a book from your required reading list. Read until you're too tired to concentrate or until you're low on chakra. Do not disperse yourselves until further notice. Dismissed. Hi, Commander. Ryu turned to the original as the clones sped away. When you become more accustomed to using this training method, weaken more clones. At the moment, the results are secondary. We are working on helping your body and mind adapt to the increased stress of this training method. You will feel tired, much more tired than usual, but given your Uzumaki physicality, I'm sure you can handle it. The mental stress you will incur is perhaps our biggest hurdle. If I assume correctly, you will get a rush of information the instant one clone disperses. Do not disperse them all at once, at least not until you're used to training like this. Take it one at a time and try to organize your thoughts before dispersing the next clone. Naruto nodded. I understand. Good. What should I do, Commander? Asked the original. I assume I will join the clones working on water walking. No, answered Ryu. Whenever your clones are training like this, the only thing you have to do is physically train your body. Naruto nodded in understanding. If I recall correctly, Jiraiya-sama specifically instructed you to read about resistance seals. Yes, a while ago. Have you learned how to make them? Yes, I've made a few of them already. We will start using them, instructed the commander. We will need a selection of them with varying degrees of resistance. In proportion, we will place seals on your shoulders, upper and lower arms, chest and abdomen, and all major muscles of your legs. I will let you decide on how much resistance is placed on each seal, and I'll trust you to adjust any increases in the future. This will be your personal project. Is this in preparation on taijutsu training? Asked the boy. Yes, at least preparing your body for the kind of taijutsu training we will undergo. The commander nodded. Understood. Yes, sir. Naruto saluted. Should I go prepare the seals now? No, we will start with those tomorrow. Ryu gestured Naruto to sit down as he sat down himself. I have a special task for you to do today. The boy looked excited but remained silent. I am impressed with your progression regarding social interactions. Your recent mission to befriend the Yamanaka heiress was a tremendous success, and I want you to explore that area more. Naruto leaned closer. How so? Kakashi, Tenzo, Ko, and I have discussed this closely a few nights ago after we watched your mission tapes. Naruto nodded along. We all agree that your exploration of similar social interactions will become just as important as other parts of your training. Kakashi will discuss more of this with you later, but today I am giving you a new mission. Does it involve Ino-chan? He asked as he jumped from his seat, smiling brightly. Yes, it does. Yes, cried the boy, losing his composure. It had been a long 2.5 days without his friend. Monday and Tuesday went as normal, but everything seemed lacking after meeting Ino. She was so bright, energetic, and fun, now anything not involving her seemed dull and boring. A mission involving Ino-chan, that was two of Naruto's absolute favorite things and he couldn't be happier. Chibi, attention. Hi, Commander. Your mission today is to surprise your new friend at the academy. It is nearing the end of the school day, so the students there should be leaving soon. I want you to find Yamanaka Ino and spend the rest of the day with her. This is an infiltration mission with a reconnaissance component. You will find the target at the academy without being seen by anyone but her. Lead her away from the academy and attempt to spend the rest of the day with her. The goal of this mission is to find out as much as you can about the target. Naruto nodded. Understood, Commander. You have one side objective. Ryu cleared his throat. I want you to count the number of times you managed to make her smile. Make her smile. Yes, understood. Yes, Commander. Good, said the commander with a nod. Dismissed. The Ninja Academy, located at the base of the Hokage mountain. The stone faces of the previous Hokage looked down on the new generation, watching over them like eternal guardians. Naruto had heard that story before from the Sandaime. Then another time, Naruto had read that the academy was built by the Nadaime Hokage before the mountain even had the Shodai's face on it, but Naruto digressed. Truth was not important in this case, just as long as the students felt protected by the Hokage. But it was far, much farther away from the ANBU barracks than the park. It was at the very edge of the village, and Naruto had never ventured so far out, but he felt confident and excited. For this mission, Naruto had foregone his godfather's new jacket, opting for more mobility. He still wore a standard issue, black ANBU utility pants and boots, complete with his usual short-sleeved, dark gray fishnet shirt. To blend in more with the civilian population, he wore a simple dark blue, high-collared jacket. It covered his seals well and the sleeves were stretchy enough to be pulled up if required. Traveling by rooftop, Naruto sped to the Hokage mountain, and soon he found the large building under it. Peering down from a tall water tower, he read the sign the Reed Ninja Academy. If that wasn't clear enough, the mass migration of students from the building should have been enough. It is 2:55 p.m., 5 minutes before the end of the school day. Naruto hunched down as he spoke into his personal log recorder. Target facility is more crowded than anticipated, but given my similar size and age compared to the people within, infiltration should prove simple. Sliding down the building, Naruto slipped into the shadows. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, he whispered as a copy of himself appeared beside him. Wordlessly, the clone sped off, fully aware of the plan Naruto had thought up. Silently and seamlessly, the clone merged into the crowd, stepping behind shadows, matching their footsteps, and walked in front of distracted faces. He vanished in the crowd, an ANBU assassin in the daylight. Before long, he had sped into the academy building, speeding from one corner to the other, slipping into shadows against the light, and only stopped when he sensed her. It was the same signature. Purple, soft and delicate, like a swaying flower in the wind. It was Ino-chan. She was in a classroom, still quietly listening to the final instructions of her teacher. Jumping to the ceiling, he silently crawled to the doorway, peering through the small window on the closed door. He saw her immediately, the lone blonde in the class, her hair bright and vibrant. He felt his heart pound against his chest. It had been 2.5 days since he last saw her, and he had missed her much. His rationality returned as he shook his head. He noted that Ino sat near the back of the classroom and was the closest person to one of the windows by the side. Only one other person sat closer to her, another girl with bright pink hair. She was relatively alone. It was the perfect position. Forming a hand sign, he made another clone and immediately dispersed it, sending his memories back to his original. Outside, the real Naruto smiled. Target is located on the second floor of the academy, in a classroom by the easternmost wall. There is window access near the back and the target is the immediate person. A single distraction by the door of the classroom should draw all attention away and leave a wide enough opening for extraction. Forming another clone and destroying it, the original sent his plan to the clone. The clone smirked before attaching a seal to the door. It was a sound tag, or that was what Naruto named it. It was one of his first original seals, capable of recording a sound and relaying it back, volume adjustable. He had originally designed this seal to use against Toruni, who would snore loudly in the cafeteria. But the Akamichi ANBU had since changed his habits and Naruto's invention lay unused, until today. Kai. Immediately, the wall vibrating loudness of snoring echoed through the hallway. The door was shaking against its hinges, and the clone wondered if he set the volume too high. With a shrug, he dispersed himself. In that instant, the original Naruto was already by the eastern wall and stood by the window outside, attached to the outer wall by chakra. He chuckled when he heard Toruni's snoring, and when looked inside, he saw the backs of every head as they all looked over at the loud, vibrating door. With a grin, he pressed his hand against the window glass with chakra and slid it open, the snoring immediately becoming louder. Jumping inside, he realized he was right beside Ino. They were close, almost as close as they were on that bench. Her chakra filled his senses, and it was like beholding a beautiful bouquet of flowers, purple and golden. He blushed and his fingers tingled coldly, but he nudged her shoulder. She jumped and turned around. She gasped loudly, but only he heard her over the loud snoring. He winked at her, trying to control the flush he knew was on his cheeks. Naru, he pressed a finger to her lips, smiling at her bright and widened eyes. He leaned close to her, shivering as his lips nearly touched her ear. Be quiet, Ino-chan, and come with me, okay? She blushed to the roots of her hair, which made her look unbearably cute. He wanted to leave with her immediately, but he had to wait for her answer, staring into her pretty eyes as he did. It felt like a long time, but it was fine, he didn't want to look away anyway. But then she broke her eyes away, breaking his focus, and nodded quickly. Taking that as his K, he grabbed her hand. With everyone, even the pink-haired girl next to Ino, still watching and slowly approaching the snoring door, he pulled Ino into his arms. He knew she couldn't walk on walls yet, and could never endanger his best friend. He lifted her up and scooped his arm under her legs, smiling as held her close. He had seen this before, in a movie he watched with his sisters. It was called a bridal carry, and it was most efficient. Weight distribution was even and he had a sufficient hold on her, enough for him to safely extract his target. Hold on tight, he whispered. Her eyes widened and her arms tightened around his neck as he jumped out the window, running up the side of the building, heading for the roof. Ino cried out in shock, which almost made him panic, but he was very close to the roof. Luckily for him, Ino's cries were muffled by the strong wind at that height, and before long, he'd landed on the barren roof. Planting his feet firmly on the ground, he grinned at Ino. Hey, don't worry, you're really light, so I can carry you easily for a long time. I won't let anything happen to you. A fundamental rule of the ANBU, protect your client or target at all costs. But I'm sorry I scared you. Naruto-kun, she asked, still reeling from the last 10 seconds of her life. Do you want to spend today with me? He was still holding her in his arms, but she was so light compared to his usual training weights, he almost didn't notice. She was also very warm and it felt nice to hold her in the cold wind. My sensei let me go early and I missed you. She looked like a tomato again. Naruto would have smacked himself had he not been carrying Ino. They were standing on the roof under the afternoon sun, of course she would be burning up again. He wondered how he could unseal a bottle of water with Ino in his arms. He could set her down, but he really didn't want to. Sure, she answered, breaking him from his thoughts as she looked up at him timidly. I'd love to hang out with you. Great. Naruto-kun, she called out, her voice against the wind. I missed you, too. ANBU Commander Ryu's personal training ground had been flooded, covered from end to end in waist-deep water. It nearly exhausted the chakra reserves of several new recruits, but they managed to terraform the area without much trouble. The rocky dirt field had been transformed into a small lake, complete with jagged rocks protruding the surface, and sharp cliffs lining the edges along the walls, courtesy of the commander's own Dodenjutsu. Everything was underwater, and if anyone had to do anything on the surface, be it stand, sit, or kneel, it would have to be done on water. You're slowing down, Chibi. Naruto grunted in response, forcing his legs to their limits. Sorry, Commander. The boy's legs were shaking and his whole person trembled, but he stood strong on the surface and ran. It had been 2 days since he applied the resistance seals to his body, numbering a total of 21, and he had since increased the pressure twice. His entire body, every major muscle group, was now under precise amounts of controlled pressure, designed to hinder his natural and most common movements. It had proven to be extremely effective. It became quickly apparent that Naruto healed much quicker than the normal person. Even by Uzumaki standards, the recovery time of Naruto's energy, chakra, stamina, and physical body was incredible. Strained or even pulled muscles healed within minutes. He could regain most of his energy within minutes of a small meal. His stamina suffered, but had never run out, and he'd never been close to putting a dent in his chakra reserves. Ryu had doubled Naruto's training intensity. The boy needed almost no rest, and because of his healing factor, physical gains were seen almost instantly. With this training, Naruto could maintain his absolute physical peak indefinitely, and could possibly promote faster growth. He was already taller than most other kids his age, but Ryu could see his students starting puberty in only another year or two. Only one more lap, called out the commander, you're almost finished. The boy stared at the finish line, where 7 of his clones were waiting for him. They had no use for resistance seals and were only focused on maintaining and improving chakra control, so they had finished much faster than the original. Naruto managed one more push and made it back to his teacher. Finished, Commander. Ryu nodded, his arms crossed. Good work, Chibi. He watched as the boy stand on quivering knees. Are you well enough to disperse your clones? Naruto huffed as he nodded, yes, sir. He made a hand sign and grinned at his clones, who all stared back at him in pity. They all shared the same memories, and they all knew how much exhaustion would be returning to the original. With a quick flare of chakra, Naruto cancelled his jutsu and the 7 boys vanished with puffs of smoke. He rested his hands on his knees and braced himself. He groaned, his head pulsing and his vision darkening, but he had grown used to such sensations. This one isn't too bad, not nearly as bad as the first time. He felt his heart race against his chest, trying to pump as much oxygen as possible through his bloodstream, and slowly, he felt his breathing calm. I think I'm getting the hang of this. Have you adjusted to your new memories? He nodded. Yes, he replied with a pant. It's much easier to process if the clones were all doing the same thing. They were all just running laps on water, nothing too confusing. He managed to straighten his back, to stand upright. The other 5 are much harder to deal with. They're all reading different books on different subjects. I don't think I can pop all of them at once. I'll do those one at a time in 1-minute intervals. Very well, commended the commander, I trust your judgment. Thank you, sir. In 2 days, your 7 clones here have collectively ran on water for approximately 168 hours. Your chakra control has improved significantly and will now be able to conduct battle scenarios and drills on water. That will be your task on Monday. Naruto nodded, his legs still shaking, but healing. While you continue with your physical conditioning, your clones will be conducting precise movement drills or battles on the water surface. It will be much more difficult than this week's training. The boy almost grimaced, but knew better. Take the next 2 days to rest. I believe you have other arrangements made already. Naruto smiled. Yes, sir. His legs had stopped shaking and he was standing firm. I made plans to meet with Ino-chan again, for both days. Good, Ryu muttered, your social skills are just as important as your combat skills. Be sure to be on your best behavior and remember that your mission regarding young Yamanaka-san is still ongoing. 21 smiles, the boy said with a grin. Ino-chan smiled at me 21 times on Wednesday. I will aim for even more this weekend. The commander nodded. I also expect you to put your reading to good use. Yes, sir. Naruto's breathing returned to normal. I've read and fully comprehended The Gentleman's Guide to Etiquette, The Fine Art of Manliness, and How to Be a Gentleman. Telltale Signs of the Human Body was interesting, and while they were highly recommended by Kakani and Koni, I still struggle to understand the concepts taught in Gentleman's Guide to Getting Lucky and Oral Warfare. That is to be expected, muttered Ryu. Those 2 books were added after the fact as outliers. We did not expect you to fully grasp the lessons within, but as you mature and grow, they should naturally come to you. Just remember the words and they will make sense in the future. The boy saluted, his body recovering. Understood, Commander. Now, we will end our training here today. Naruto's eyes brightened, but Ryu stopped him. No, this doesn't not involve your new friend. The boy pouted and stayed silent. Hokage-sama has requested your presence. He will meet with you in the playroom. Permission to go now? Asked the boy. Granted. It had been a while since Naruto had been to his playroom. Ever since he was allowed to train as an actual ninja, he felt no need to play with his old toy kunai and katana. But ever since he could remember, Naruto also associated the playroom with his Ji-chan. Some of his fondest memories as a child were playing with the Hokage, sparring with him with foam swords and pelting him with rubber shuriken. Ji-chan was younger then and could take some hits, but recently Naruto had started to worry about his beloved grandfather's health. Ji-chan. Naruto ran into the room with a grin, finding his grandfather sitting on one of many beanbag chairs. He quickly gave the old man a hug, welcoming his warmth. His Ji-chan felt thinner now, and the boy noticed that he was not much shorter than the old man anymore. How are you feeling, Naruto? The Hokage asked as the boy pulled away, jumping to the next beanbag chair. Is your new training regimen too much? Not at all, he replied with his grin. I do get tired a lot during training, but I feel fine after some rest. Commander said that I recover very quickly, so no matter how tired I am during the intense moments, as long as I don't push too hard, I should be fine. You do your Uzumaki ancestry proud, my boy. Thanks, Ji-chan. The Hokage smiled at the boy. Now, I do have something to discuss with you today. At his tone, Naruto sat upright. We've come to a milestone in your life, Naruto. You are growing as a shinobi and as a person. Not only will you continue to develop your skills with Commander Ryu, you will also start to socially interact with others your age. Naruto nodded. I am very happy that you've made a friend so quickly. I have met little Miss Ino-chan a few times before, and she seems like a very nice girl. Naruto gave a small smile and nodded. She is, Ji-chan. Ino-chan is amazing. The old chuckled at the boy. I'm sure she is. But now that you are starting to interact with people outside of the ANBU, I feel I must go over a few ground rules with you regarding certain sensitive subjects. Such as? Asked the boy confused. Such as your parents. The Hokage sighed. As much as I want to give you your father's name right now, it is still too early. So for now, I only want you to use the Uzumaki name, and when people ask you about your parents, tell them that you don't know who they were. The boy nodded in understanding. Same with your skills as a shinobi. I am very proud that you have progressed so quickly, but I need you to keep most of your skills secret. You may show some basic knowledge in jutsu, but keep the more advanced of your arsenal to yourself. I understand. Which bring us to your future as a shinobi. Naruto sat taller, excited. To be honest with you, you are already skilled enough to be a genin. The boy's eyes widened. You already know everything the academy is required to teach, and your physical capabilities and chakra control are already beyond those of the average genin, and your chakra capacity and potency is beyond that of all jonin in the village. But at this point, it is more important for you to focus on building a strong foundation for yourself. Becoming genin right now will only hinder your training with Commander Ryu. For the foreseeable future, we will focus on your training and developing your ninjutsu and taijutsu. I'm okay with that, Ji-chan. I love training with the commander, and I need to get stronger if I'm ever going to be Hokage. The Sandaime smiled. That's right. He patted the boy's head. But this doesn't mean you'll never join the regular forces. No matter how strong you are, you will need real-world experience. You also need to learn to work with other people and learn about teamwork. Naruto nodded along. Commander Ryu and I have decided that we will focus on your training until you turn 12 years old, at which point you will be promoted to genin and join your own team with others your age. Naruto's eyes widened. Does this mean I could be on the same team as Ino-chan? With a chuckle, the Hokage shook his head. Not likely. Ino-chan is the heiress of the Yamanaka clan, and she will be expected to continue the tradition of being on the same team as the Nara heir and the Akamichi heir, both of whom are also your age. The Ino Shikicho have been working together for generations. I'm sure you've learned about them by now. Yes, I have. Naruto recalled reading about them with Kakani, I guess, I never connected the thought that one of them is actually Ino-chan's father. He smiled. Wow, Ino-chan's father must be really strong, huh? In certain fields, he is Konoha's foremost expert. If you ever meet him, be on your best behavior. You would be talking to one of the living heroes of the village. I will, Ji-chan. Placing a hand on Naruto's shoulder, the old man continued. When you become a genin, you will likely be far stronger than your peers. It's possible you may even match the skills of your Jonin sensei. This means I won't expect you to be a genin for long, but during that time your goal would be to amass as much real-world combat experience as possible along with learning about teamwork and the intrigue of enemy ninja. There is only so much we can teach without experiencing the real thing. Knowledge can be taught, but instinct can only be honed by experience. I'll work as hard as I can, Ji-chan. I know you will, Naruto. The old man stood with a groan. Now, how about you join your grandfather for some dinner? Naruto grinned. Sure, I'm starving. It was finally the weekend, and Naruto would soon see his best friend again. It was remarkable to the young boy that his perspective on his schedule could change so much in such little time. A mere week ago, training so intensely in his new training program would undoubtedly be the highlight of his week. He could still remember dreading his weekend breaks. He'd much rather train and sweat than to lounge around doing nothing. But now, he'd felt elated about training being over, because now the weekend would let him see his first friend. Ino-chan. Naruto-kun. Her smile was beautiful. It was bright and vibrant and lit up the world. He loved it and everything about it. How her eyes would seemingly disappear with her grin, how her lips would widen before letting out a cute giggle, and most importantly, how easily he brought it out of her. Smile no. 22. It was another beautiful Saturday and once again the park was crowded, but Naruto no longer felt uncomfortable. Perhaps he'd grown used to it, but he knew that it was because with her there, he couldn't really see any other people anyway. His eyes refused to look away from her, even when his racing heart demanded him to, but she was too radiant. Dressed in a pink sundress with her golden hair blowing freely in the wind, Naruto could only stare as she ran toward him. It was almost blinding when she reached him, but his brain quickly went into overdrive when she grabbed his hand and pulled him along. We have to escape, Naruto-kun. Huh? Asked Naruto as his body automatically listened to her. Why? He asked again, already running next to her. Ask questions later. Ino glanced back at him and he felt weak at the knees. Just get us out of here. Hi. With a burst of speed, Naruto scooped Ino into his arms again. Channeling chakra to his feet, he pushed off the ground, vanishing in a blur. The pair was a golden blur, zipping through the park and in between people, leaving only glimpses of yellow behind as they escaped through the shadows of lounging parents and racing children. It was long before they reached the trees and vanished into the thick canopy. 5 seconds. It took too long. Naruto knew having Ino in his arms would slow him down a little, but not a 3-second delay. Perhaps he had adjusted his resistance seals a tad too much. His body had healed after his week of training and he already felt a bit too light, so he had increased the seal pressure the previous night. Naruto cursed himself inwardly. Had he known Ino would need his speed, he'd had removed the seal for her. Sorry, Ino-chan, he whispered, finally looking down at the girl in his arms. I'm slower than usual today. He saw Ino looking up at him in awe. That was slow. She blinked and looked around, seemingly realizing where they were hiding. I've never moved that fast ever. I didn't even know people could move this fast. Are we in a tree? How did you even get up here? No, this is quite normal. Naruto shrugged. I can move faster than this on better days and most of my siblings are still faster than me. You should see my sensei and Ji-chan. I can't even see them move when they run. Really? Asked the girl. How is that possible? Training, I guess. He grinned at her. One day, I'll be just as fast as them. Give me a few years and I'll show you. Ino tightened her arms around his neck. Sure, I'd love that. Now, are we far enough? What are we hiding from? Asked the boy, stretching his senses out, but not finding anything out of the ordinary. I can get us deeper into the forest if you want. I don't even know where we are exactly, so I don't know, she whispered back, her breath tickling his cheek. Maybe we should just stay here for a bit. He fought off his blush and nodded, feeling his hair brush against hers. Sure. That's fine with me. He smiled again, you're still so light. I can hold you like this forever. Even under the shade of the thick leaves, Ino's face burned red. According to telltale signs of the human body, flushing of the cheeks could mean more than heat. It could also mean stress or embarrassment. Naruto saw no reason for the angel in his arms to feel any sort of embarrassment, so it must have been stress. Perhaps whatever they were hiding from was deeply concerning to her. Forever, she whispered, breaking him out of his thoughts. You promise? Huh? He pondered her words and gauged her weight before he grinned. Sure, if you want, I'll hold you like this forever. I promise. Ino was barely a fifth of the weight of his strongest resistance seal, so accounting for his healing factor and fast recovery, he had a reasonable chance of being able to never set her down. And you're really warm, too, he muttered softly, a blush returning to his cheeks. It feels nice when I hold you like this. I'll hold you to your words, she muttered, her cheeks like a tomato. I always keep my promises, Ino-chan. He was concerned about her burning cheeks, meaning her stress. And don't worry. You don't have to be stressed. I'm here so I'll protect you from anything. Ino hugged him tighter. Then let's just stay here for the rest of the day. Her head was resting on his shoulder as she looked up at him, and her eyes were so close to his. They were so blue and sparkly. His heart was punching his chest as his whole body tingled. He had never felt so odd in his entire life. He felt happy. His whole body felt elevated, like it was floating in air. He felt exhilarated. He felt like his future had been shown to him and he was excited to savor every second. It was like his soul was fluttering and he could barely whisper a sound, but he felt he had to speak his mind. If you want, he managed between shaky breaths, we can even stay here forever. She tightened her arms around him again, staring up into his eyes. I'd love to. They stared at each other, unmoving, content. Never had they experienced such confusing emotions. It felt relaxing, but also exhilarating. It felt important, but also surreal. They felt incredibly happy, but also afraid and anxious. It was complicated and beyond their understanding, but they had all day and possibly the rest of their life in that tree to figure out everything, so they just settled in the growing silence. Isn't this sweet? A booming voice came from behind. Years of ANBU training and conditioning returned to the boy's enamored mind and flooded his body with adrenaline. His eyes hardened, losing their sparkle, replaced with a sharp glare. This was someone who evaded his sensory abilities and even managed to reach his back. All this with Ino-chan still in his arms. It was a failure of unforgivable proportions. He pulled Ino close to his chest, his arms hugging her protectively as her head hit against his neck. She was fully protected by his body before he moved. Channeling chakra into his right heel, he spun with his left leg, slicing the space behind him with a swift kick, his piercing blue eyes searching for his enemy. But his kick was stopped with a grunt of pain. Damn, kid, you're strong. A man stood before him, towered over him. He had long sandy blonde hair tied into a long ponytail, a stern face with a strong jaw, and pale blue eyes that he recognized immediately. The man was not wearing the standard uniform of the Analysis and Interrogation Corp, but Naruto knew who he was. Yamanaka Inoichi, Jonin of Konoha, and one of the legendary Ino Shikacho. Naruto's eyes widened and quickly withdrew his leg. I'm sorry. I thought you were an enemy. He is the enemy, cried Ino, who was still burning red, as she pointed at the man. Let's run away, Naruto-kun. But, the boy muttered, staring up at the clearly amused man. Isn't he your father? He's still the enemy. Inoichi chuckled. You recognize me? Yes, sir. Naruto awkwardly bowed to the man, still holding onto a burning Ino. My Ji-chan told me stories about your legendary team. I've seen you in my reference books and lessons. Sorry for attacking you. The Jonin laughed and patted Naruto's head, ruffling his hair. No need to apologize. You were just protecting my daughter. Inoichi knelt down to Naruto's height. I'm impressed. You suppressed your chakra very well, and if it wasn't for my daughter, I don't think I would have been able to track you so quickly. And even in your suppressed state, I felt you trying to sense my presence. That is some advanced chakra control for someone your age. Thank you, sir. Naruto stared at the man before glancing at Ino, who was glaring at her father. But, if I may ask, the man nodded, chuckling again. Is there something we can do for you? Yes. Inoichi patted the boy's head again. I'm sorry to break up your little playdate, but Ino's mother and I, and our family friends, prepared a picnic. Why don't you both come down and join us? A picnic? Asked Naruto, glancing at Ino again, who just huffed at her dad. It has been a long time since we've had a nice family outing, and I really wanted to meet this new friend my daughter keeps talking about. Ino almost glowed red. Tu-chan, shut up. Me. Yes, you. Inoichi smiled at him. It's very nice to meet you, Naruto. His tone reminded Naruto a lot of Kakani and his Ji-chan. It's very nice to meet you, too, Yamanaka-san. The man smiled. You're my daughter's friend, so just call me Inoichi Oji-san. Okay, sure. The man looked at Naruto expectantly. Inoichi Oji-san. Now, come on. Inoichi stood and gestured to the park. My friend prepared a lot of food, so let's go get some before it gets cold. Naruto blankly nodded, but Ino grunted and crossed her arms, still in her friend's strong arms. Princess, stop pouting. You can play with Naruto all you want after lunch. Fine, she muttered with a pout. Is Shikamaru and Choji here, too? Of course, they are. Ino groaned. I'm sorry, Naruto-kun. With a huge frown, she dropped her feet to the solid branch and stood from Naruto's arms. I better jump down myself. Those two can be really annoying and nosy. I don't want them to ask you too many questions. Who? Asked Naruto. Just children of my parents' friends. Ino pouted and turned from her amused father. You don't have to talk to them if you don't want to. Now, Inoichi started. I'm sure Naruto wouldn't mind meeting some new friends. He smiled at Naruto again. I'm sure you'll be quick friends with Shikamaru and Choji as well. They grew up together with Ino, they're basically like siblings. Oh, Naruto said with nod, I get it now. Just like me and my older siblings. Yes, exactly. Inoichi rubbed his daughter's head. Now, let's go. We don't want to be rude. They jumped from the tree, landing softly on the ground, but Naruto still held onto Ino's arm, afraid she'd hurt herself. She smiled at him and he felt his heart race again, but quickly followed along as Inoichi started to make his way through the large field. Naruto had been to this park many times by now, but it was the first time walking through it with someone's parent. It was an odd feeling, but knowing that it was Ino's father made it simpler to accept. From a distance Naruto could see where Inoichi was headed, and it was a huge picnic blanket, at least triple the size of all the other normal ones around the park. He had only expected a few people, but there were 7 people sitting around the food. 2 of them were clearly kids around his age, which he assumed were Ino's childhood friends. The adults he couldn't really see, but as he approached, he quickly figured them out. Being close family friends with the Yamanaka clan was already a big clue, and now seeing the huge man in front of them, it was only logical. It was the legendary Ino Shika-cho in the flesh, having a picnic. We're here. Inoichi called out as the group turned to see them approaching. Ino didn't get far. Naruto felt everyone's eyes look at him. The 2 kids around his age looked at him curiously, which was normal, but the adults were different. The 3 ladies stared at him with slightly slack jaws, a bodily response that Naruto was unfamiliar with. Recalling his recent reading material, it could indicate surprise. Was it really so surprising that Ino met a new friend? Naruto needed more information before making any conclusions. Naruto, started Inoichi, breaking Naruto from his thoughts. Let me introduce. Naruto looked at the group. This is Nara Shikaku, said the Yamanaka. I'm sure you recognize him if you recognized me. Beside him is his wife, Nara Yoshino, and the little one is Shikamaru. He is the same age as you. This was the Jonin commander, the infamous Nara clan head. Naruto had heard so many stories about him, and Ji-chan had only ever said good things about him. But he looked much more normal than Naruto expected. The man had smiled at him like Inoichi had. And it seemed that the lady had broken out of her surprise of Ino meeting a new friend, because she also smiled at him. She looked very kind and nice. This is Akamichi Shuza, the Akamichi clan head. His wife, Akamichi Shoko, and his son, Akamichi Choji, who is also the same age as you. Inoichi chuckled. They're the ones who brought all this food. As you can see, it's basically a feast. Naruto knew Toru Ni was an Akamichi, and he now knew everyone in his clan must look similar to each other. Their clan head was the biggest man Naruto had ever met in his life, so his strength must be unimaginable. He had studied the caloric chakra boost of the Akamichi, and it looks as though both the clan head and his wife were extremely powerful. Their son was a bit on the heavy side, but not overly so. It seemed Choji still had much more eating to do before catching up to his parents' power. And this is my lovely wife, Yamanaka Amiko, Ino's mother. Naruto clearly saw Ino's face in her mother's. She was beautiful, too. But unlike the other two ladies, who had been happily smiling at him, Amiko looked almost in tears. Perhaps it was just allergies, because she soon smiled brightly, one that looked quite similar to Ino's, and wiped her tears away. With a quick exhale, Naruto bowed to the group. My name is Uzumaki Naruto, he managed as polite as possible. It's a pleasure to meet you all. They all smiled at him, one smile wider than the other, but Amiko stood up and approached him. She was looking at him with an unexplainable familiarity, and Naruto was baffled. His new books held no insight into such a reaction, but he was fine with it. Her smile made him feel warm and cozy, it reminded him of his sisters. It's nice to finally meet you, Naruto-chan. She hugged him tightly and he heard her sniffle. Her allergies must be back, but no matter. Her hug was warm and loving, so the boy returned the hug. Thank you, Amiko Obasan. She sniffled again and choked up a little, probably holding back a sneeze. Naruto reminded himself to seal some allergy medication for the nice lady. She was nice and he didn't want her to feel sick. Ka-chan, stop hugging Naruto-kun already. Ino looked mad at something. Doesn't she know? Allergies symptoms are not contagious. Naruto-chan, don't be shy, Amiko encouraged as she filled the boy's plate with yet another onigiri. Eat more. You're a growing boy. Naruto bowed his head in thanks. Thank you, Amiko Obasan. Having grown up in the ANBU barracks, Naruto had his own experience with eating in odd situations. The few times he was allowed to watch the new recruits run their drills, he had joined them in eating while standing upside down, their feet attached to the ceiling, but that meal had only been bland food pills. He had shared a watermelon with some of his sisters, which they had sliced with their blades, while they all bathed in the hot springs. He had even shared some soba with Commander Ryu while they watched new recruits prepare their training field. He had even glimpsed at the bottom of Ryu's face. But this was his first time eating while sitting on the ground with 8 pairs of eyes staring at him. There were hundreds of people around them in the park, but for some reason, the Inoshika Cho families found him the most interesting. Naruto gulped as he bit into honestly the tastiest onigiri he had ever had in his life, but he could barely chew under such intense pressure. Why were they staring at him? Did he look weird? Did he sit weirdly or eat weirdly? Was there something on his face? He wanted to check, but he didn't want to look even weirder. Hey! Ino's voice sliced through the silence, stop staring at Naruto-kun. They all stammered and scrambled to look away, returning to their food. Naruto silently sighed in relief and looked to Ino, his hero, who was still glaring at her family and friends. She edged herself closer to him, as if protecting him from her family. Her wonderful flowery scent flooded his senses again and he had to suppress another blush. He looked down at his food, but could feel the adults looking at him again, perhaps catching his blush. This is really good, he managed through a small smile. I've never had this kind of pork filling before. Shuza gave a hearty laugh and it instantly eased Naruto's shoulders. Thank you, young man. It's an old family recipe. The famous Akimichi garlic pork onigiri. The big man passed Naruto an entire plate of new food, filled with all kinds of fried meats and skewers he had never seen before. If you like those, you'd love these, too. Give them a try. Naruto took the plate with both hands. Thank you, Oji-san, he muttered as Shuza grinned. This is a lot of food. It's normal for a young man to eat a lot. The Akimichi leader patted his son's head. My son here eats almost as much as me. Naruto saw the boy his age blush and look away, muttering, only on some days, 2-chan. You eat even more some days, muttered Ino softly, pouting her lips as she nibbled on her own onigiri. Feeling Ino's presence beside him calmed Naruto and he was at least able to focus on his food. It was indeed very good, as expected of the Akimichi clan, but as much as he was enjoying himself, he could still feel the adults staring at him. It wasn't as obvious as before, but they were all glancing at him every few seconds, as if they were observing him. Perhaps it was a test, and they were somehow gauging his senses or awareness. Commander Ryu had conducted surprise tests in similar situations before, but he had never been so obvious. These were the members of the Ino Shika Cho, they wouldn't waste their time just testing him. There must be a bigger purpose behind this meeting, and Naruto wanted to find out. So, Naruto, came the voice of Inoichi, friendly and casual. Ino tells me that you are being trained at home. How is that going so far? Naruto sat up taller. Very good, Oji-san. He cleared his throat. My Ji-chan and sensei are teaching me. It's going pretty well, but I think it's going to get much more difficult soon. You seem to be quite a bit ahead of others your age. The man sipped on his cup as he continued, I'm impressed. Ino showed me the storage seal you made for her. That's quite advanced for someone so young. Naruto bowed his head a little in thanks. Have you been practicing Fuinjutsu long? Naruto was surprised at how curious these legendary ninjas were of him. My godfather sent me a few books about Fuinjutsu to read. Remembering the Hokage's words, Naruto opted to not mention his parents. He thought it could get me into a habit of reading every day, and I guess it worked. I really like Fuinjutsu, but I'm only a beginner. They should teach it at the academy, Ino said, her voice once again calming Naruto. They don't? He asked. She shook her head. Nope, not at all. She smiled at him, making him blush again, and he was sure the adults saw him. You should see how jealous people are of my seal. I'm the only one who doesn't have to drag around a huge backpack of books and supplies every day. Troublesome, whispered Shikamaru, the other boy his age, but he quickly looked away when Ino glared at him. You don't have the chakra capacity for Fuinjutsu yet, added Inoichi, refilling on his cup. Not to mention the advanced chakra control. It's also a dangerous practice. Any miscalculation or false ink stroke can result in disaster. He smiled at Naruto. Some people are just naturally inclined to Fuinjutsu, so it's a field more offered as an alternative career path once you become genin. Amiko looked at Naruto softly. Is that something you plan to do, Naruto-chan? No, probably not, he replied politely, wiping his mouth clean. I use Fuinjutsu more as a supplement to ninjutsu, so I would probably want to join the regular forces. He sat taller, looking seriously at the adults. My dream is to become Hokage, so aiming for Jonin should be my first goal. Hokage, muttered the surprisingly relaxed voice of the Shikaku, that's quite the lofty goal, Naruto. The Jonin stared at the boy, who only returned his stare. I had a couple of classmates who wanted to become Hokage, too. Even when they were your age, they wouldn't stop yapping about it. He chuckled, rubbing the back of his head. They worked day and night for it, for years and years. If that's your goal, you'll have to do the same. His eyes lost their bemusement as he looked into Naruto's eyes. Are you willing to do that? Naruto nodded, poised and confident. Absolutely, sir. A twinkle returned to Shikaku's eyes as he smiled with a nod. Good, he muttered as he downed another drink. I'm glad there is someone like you in this new generation. He turned to his son, who was still looking bored, and rubbed the top of his head. If every kid your age acts like my lazy boy here, we're all doomed. Shikamaru grunted and shoved his father's hand away as Shikaku turned back to Naruto. I actually have some hope for the future now. Gee, thanks for your vote of confidence, Shikaku Oji-san, muttered Ino, making the man laugh. Finally, Naruto's nerves had calmed and his smiles again came easily. The food did taste very good, and as the morning sun passed into the afternoon, the conversations flowed. Naruto did not speak much, but he was content to watch and observe. He had his fair share of family meals at home, but their topics had never been so domestic. Sure, his sister may sometimes share gossip and recipes, but they'd never spoken about grocery sales or domestic chores before. It felt different, but it was nice and warm, and Naruto felt glad to be a part of it. With every joke attempted and story told, Naruto had eaten another plate of food, and soon his stomach was bursting and he started to sweat. He hadn't realized how much he was eating, and he had actually been the last person outside of the Akamichi family to stop eating. Resisting a groan, he sat back and slumped against his crossed legs. Ino giggled at the sight of him, her lingering eyes feeling hot against his skin, and he couldn't stop that blush from burning his cheeks. He carefully wiped his mouth clean and rinsed his mouth, making sure to maintain proper etiquette. He had lost himself in the great food for a second, but the knowledge from his new books came rushing back. When in public, especially in the presence of Ino, he had to be a gentleman. Calm, poised, and collected. You know, Naruto-chan, came the loving voice of Amiko. Ino-chan talks about you a lot at home. That seemed to have silenced the conversations around the picnic blanket as everyone looked over at Naruto and Ino. Naruto wasn't sure why, but he glanced around and saw the three ladies sharing a sly smile before staring at him, as if expecting him to react. His three new uncles also behaved oddly, looking at him with a sort of concern, or perhaps pity. Ka-chan, cried Ino, her face burning red, and no. What? I'm just telling the truth, the elder Yamanaka woman answered. I feel like I already know Naruto-chan because of how much you talk about him. Perhaps Ino's parents also requested daily mission reports from Ino. Naruto wasn't sure, but clearly he was not the only one sharing information about their newfound friendship. His new aunt was smiling, so that had to be a good sign. She was definitely not against his association with Ino. Naruto wasn't sure of all the facts, but he digressed. As long as he could spend more time with Ino, nothing else mattered. How do you feel about it? Asked Amiko. Naruto shrugged. I didn't know about it, but it's not all that surprising. Amiko and the other ladies looked confused by his reaction, but he returned with a smile. I talk about Ino-chan all the time at home. I guess my family might feel like they know her, too. Thinking back to the time his siblings took to watch over his mission tapes, he nodded. Oh yeah, they would definitely feel like they know her. They asked me about her a lot. Ino's face went even redder, and Naruto discreetly pushed a bottle of water closer to her. Ah, really? Asked Amiko. I've never really met anyone my age before, so Ino-chan is the first friend I've ever made. He smiled at his new aunt. I guess my family was worried about me, so they asked me a lot of questions. He shrugged, but I was fine with it. I'm always happy to talk about Ino-chan. Ah, asked Amiko happily. See, Ino. Naruto-chan talks about you all the time, too. It's completely normal. Naruto nodded. I do, he simply said before smiling. I was actually really excited about today, too. I only get to see Ino-chan on weekends. He smiled at Ino, who shakily looked away. I used to not like weekends that much, but now I can't wait for them. Oh, you're so sweet, exclaimed Emiko, Yoshino and Shoko giggling behind her. A boy who's not afraid to admit his feelings, added Yoshino with a proud nod. You're a rare one, Naruto-chan. I guess, he replied, not really understanding. Shoko giggled at the burning Ino, but turned to Naruto. Do you miss Ino-chan a lot during the week? I do, admitted the boy loudly, making Ino squeak in response. Of course, I do. I even wondered if my G-chan and sensei would let me attend the academy, but I know they'd say no. He nearly pouted, making the ladies giggle again. It'd be way more fun if we could play every day. Inoichi sighed as he silently watched the scene. No wonder Ino-chan didn't want us to come today, teased Shoko. She wanted her alone time with Naruto-chan. Ino once again looked like a tomato, and Naruto wondered why the adults weren't concerned about her. I feel a little sorry for being in the way. Are you okay, Ino-chan? Asked Naruto as he looked over her turned shoulder, seeing her burning cheeks. Is it too hot out here? Ino shook her head before nodding her head, making Naruto even more confused and worried. Ah, she's fine, Naruto-chan. Emiko placed a hand on her cheek, smiling happily. You really care about Ino-chan, don't you? Of course, I do. Naruto wondered if he was missing something or can the adults not see how red Ino was becoming. She's my best friend, he muttered, looking over at Ino, frowning at her glowing face. Emiko giggled. I'm glad she met you, Naruto-chan. You have a much better influence on her than those girls she used to play with. Naruto nodded perfunctorily, his eyes never far from the now swaying Ino. I didn't expect her to find a boyfriend. Ino squeaked again and looked ready to pass out, which made Naruto almost panic. Sorry, I mean a friend who is a boy. She giggled again, giddy at the scene. I think it's getting a little too hot out here. He looked up. The afternoon sun is dangerous. Yoshino giggled. Why is it dangerous? I'm sure you know, but Ino-chan isn't good with heat or the sun. Naruto didn't want to overstep, but Ino needed help. I actually came prepared for this. Tapping on his forearm, he unsealed an umbrella. I knew this might be a problem, so I brought this just in case. He opened the umbrella, black and opaque, and it blocked out all the sunlight. He sat closer to Ino and held it above her. This should help with the heat, Ino-chan. Yoshino stifled a laugh as the others succumbed. I don't think there's anything wrong with Ino-chan, Naruto-chan. It's not even that hot today. Huh? Asked Naruto baffled. No, it's definitely too hot. He reached for a bottle of water and handed it to Ino, who managed to shakily take it from him. Ino-chan's face gets really red in the sun. Today is way too hot for her. It might worsen into a heat stroke. Shoko cooed at him. You are just too cute. This level of cute cluelessness is dangerous, added Yoshino, chuckling. It's definitely a killer. Naruto-chan, managed Emiko as her shoulders shook with laughter. It's definitely not a heat stroke. How can you be sure? Asked the boy, leaning over to Ino. He gently reached over and placed a hand on her forehead, and it was burning hot. No, you're burning up even worse than last time, Ino-chan. You really should drink some water. Ino wasn't responding. Naruto wondered if she could even open a bottle of water in her state. He should help her, he thought, but he was holding the umbrella. Should he put the umbrella down? He could quickly open the bottle and hand it to her, but a couple of seconds in the hot sun could be very dangerous for her. Should he use a cage bunshin? That would expose his skills too much. Why weren't they helping him? Naruto, came the voice of Shikaku, the umbrella is a good idea, but it might not be enough. Naruto's eyes widened, but listened on. Why don't you take Ino-chan over to the shade? She can cool down over there. The boy scrambled to keep the umbrella over Ino's head as he fumbled to his feet. We'll leave her in your care. Make sure she drinks plenty of water, okay? Yes, sir. Naruto threw the umbrella into the air, making it hover over Ino for a second, keeping her safe, before scooping her into his arms again. Let's go, Ino-chan. He sped off, wondering if he should release his resistance seals, but the Hokage's words flooded his mind. He had to keep his true skills secret. It would take a few seconds more, but he'd make it to the shade on time. He'd never let anything happen to his precious friend. The instant the two blonde children were out of sight, the floodgates opened. Amiko, Yoshino, and Shoko all burst into laughter, clutching their stomachs as tears fell from their eyes. Drinks were spilt, cups were knocked over, and the people around them were staring, but they didn't care. Even Shuza and Shikaku joined in with a few chuckles, shaking their heads in amusement. The only person silent and stoic was Inoichi. Well, Inoichi, said Shikaku with a grin, your worries are over. Shuza laughed, I'd say so. Yoshino leaned against her husband, still trembling in laughter. Heat stroke. Ino-chan must blush a lot around Naruto-chan, added Shoko in between breaths, he even brought an umbrella. He must think she has the worst heat tolerance in Hai no Kuni. Amiko shook her head with a wheeze, I've never seen Ino so red. I know you worry about Ino-chan's future, but now it's settled. There's no coming back from this one. Shikaku chuckled again, looking at Inoichi, that boy there is a natural. The perfect clueless pretty boy. Give him a few more years and we'll be hearing wedding bells. Choji, Shikamaru, said Inoichi, breaking his silence with a smile. Why don't you boys go play in the park? You've both been patient enough. Choji grinned and nodded, sure. Let's go, Shikamaru. Troublesome, the Nara heir muttered as he stood up, okay, but this has been one weird day. He looked over in the direction Naruto and Ino disappeared before looking at his father. I think that guy might be an idiot. Shikaku shook his head, no, son. He is actually extremely gifted. He waved his son off, but don't think too much of it. This isn't the kind of talent you should worry about. I doubt you'd want it even if you could learn it. Nope. Definitely not. Shoving his hands in his pockets, Shikamaru walked off. Come on, Choji. Finally. Inoichi watched as the remaining children ran off before slouching down with a sigh. He looked in the direction his daughter was taken away, a melancholic expression on his face. He knew this was something he'd eventually had to deal with, but not so soon. He foolishly thought his daughter was still a child and he'd have his little princess until at least after she would graduate the academy. He sighed again, mourning his time lost. My little princess, he muttered, downing another drink. Amiko rolled her eyes, still smiling. Come now, dear. This is just some puppy love, there's no harm in it. She leaned into him, and Naruto-chan probably has no idea what is even happening. He's just worried about his friend. I guess so, Inoichi said with another sigh. At the very least, I much prefer her crushing on Naruto than the Uchiha boy she used to be obsessed with. Yes, this is a good thing. Amiko sighed happily, whispering her next words, if Kushina and Minato had lived, Ino and Naruto-chan would have grown up together. They're just catching up on lost time. Inoichi smiled at the thought. Yeah, that's true. Kushina would have loved this, Yoshino whispered, smiling fondly. She would have spoiled the hell out of Ino-chan just for being the only girl in the group. She chuckled, can you imagine how much she'd love Ino if she found out about Ino's crush? She'll basically be adopted into their family within a day. She'd have the names of her future grandchildren on standby. Shuza gave a low laugh, might even start knitting some children-sized scarves. Minato would probably try and fail to calm her down, added Shikaku with a smile, then he'd probably come to us for advice. There is no way I'd ever stand in Kushina's way, answered Shuza, she was a natural disaster on her own. Shoko smiled and sighed, looking up at the clear skies, they both must be smiling down on us right now. Inoichi sighed and nodded. Yeah, they must be. He thought of Naruto, he looks so much like Minato. He chuckled, It's uncanny. He somehow managed to wipe Kushina's genes from the boy. The only thing I can see he got from her is his personality, and even then, he's like a perfect mixture of his parents. He wants to be Hokage, Yoshino whispered, just like them. The boy is talented, muttered Shikaku, downing another drink. Hokage-sama basically stated his intention to groom Naruto into the next Hokage. He's being personally trained by the best of the best. Give him a few more years and he'll be stronger than all of us. He burped and sighed. I have no doubt that Naruto will become one of the strongest of his generation. The Hokage will make sure of that. All we have to do is to make sure he grows into a balanced and decent man. Amiko nodded. I'll make sure of it. I'll take care of him like he's my own son. Yoshino smirked. Good, because there's a good chance he'll be your son-in-law. I can live with that, answered Inoichi before his wife. If he's anything like his father, I know he'll treat my princess right. Amiko rested against her husband. Maybe I should start knitting some scarves. Once again, Naruto and Ino returned to their quiet sanctuary, the thick canopy of their favorite oak tree. The young boy managed to shave 1 second off his previous attempt and made it to the tree in only 4 seconds. Cradling Ino in his arms, he gently sat down on one of many thick branches, resting his back against the trunk of the tree. It was once again silent and Naruto felt his body relax. It had been a fun lunch and he really enjoyed meeting his new aunts and uncles, but he loved nothing more than to be alone with Ino. Breathing a sigh of relief, Naruto lowered Ino onto his lap, still holding her close. She still felt so light and delicate that he didn't dare let her go. Her shoulders were trembling and her hands were shaking, not to mention her still burning face. She must have felt uncomfortable and he wanted nothing more than to soothe her. Is this better, Ino-chan? He whispered softly, his voice barely louder than the soft breeze that surrounded them. Do you need any water? Ino gently shook her head, and no, she whispered. Brushing his knuckles against her forehead, he sighed. You're still so hot. He gently blew on her forehead, hoping to ease her pain. I'm sorry. I should have gotten you out of there sooner. It's okay, she replied, looking down at her folded hands, still shaking. I'm starting to feel better. Following her gaze, he found her hands. With one hand on her back, keeping her close, he reached with his other for her hands. Your hands are cold, he whispered. Do you feel any chills? I'm worried you might have a fever. She shuddered a breath. I'm fine, Naruto-kun. He rubbed her cold fingers with his own, holding both her hands with his own. Are you sure? Why, yes. She was still trembling, and she must have been tired, because she rested her head against his shoulder. It was a bit hot out there, but it's nice and cool in here. She managed to peek up at him, briefly looking into his worried gaze. I love it in here. He smiled and nodded. I love it in here, too. They sat in silence, Naruto on the branch and Ino on his lap, her head resting on his shoulder. The soft breeze blew through the leaves around them and fluttered a soft tune, soothing them both. As he relaxed, Naruto tilted his head to the side, resting his cheek against Ino's hair. It was soft and silky and smelled of sweet flowers. He wondered if any flower could match her sweetness, probably not. Breathing in her scent, he smiled, lifting up his legs a little, tilting her closer into his chest. I think we should make this our fort, whispered Ino, rubbing her red cheek against his shoulder. What's that? He asked softly, feeling almost sleepy. He couldn't see her, but felt the curve of her smile. Make this our fort, our place. This could be where we would always meet. We never play in the park, anyway, so why not just stay here whenever we play? She giggled. I actually wanted to hide out here today. We only have the weekend for ourselves. I didn't want to share it with other people. I didn't mind it, he whispered, enjoying the serenity. Lunch was very good and your parents are great. I've never really met anyone like them before, but for someone so famous, your dad and your uncles are all very nice. Ino giggled. They really like you. He felt her hair tickle his face, smiling at the feeling. Especially my mom. I've never seen her so happy to meet my friends. I don't think she even treats Shikamaru and Choji like that. At the mention of the other boys, he added, your friends seem nice, too. I didn't get to speak to them that much, but I think I'll like them, too. They're okay, she answered with a smile, you'll have to get used to them. Shikamaru is the laziest person I've ever met. He never does his homework and always falls asleep in class. Naruto wondered if the academy was particularly laxed. Had he fallen asleep during his lessons, Commander Ryu would throw him in the water. Choji is a little better in class, at least he doesn't sleep. But he is always eating something. I don't know where he hides them all, but he always has a bag of chips with him. It seems fun, he added, going to the academy. If only I could attend, too. Ino nodded against his shoulder, if only. He smiled against her hair. Actually, no. Ino frowned and shook her head, I don't want Amy and the others to meet you. They get crazy whenever a cool boy joins our class. Naruto couldn't really understand, but listened on. They'd crowd around you all day, trying to fight for the seat beside you, and you would never be able to eat in peace during lunch. If I ever go to the academy, I'd only sit next to you. Naruto shrugged, I guess for lunch we can just hide in trees. I saw a few tall and large oaks around the building, so we can make another fort there. You wouldn't want to meet other friends? She asked, glancing up at him. I guess I can meet a few more, but I doubt I'd like them more than I like you. He smiled and her face grew red again, you're my first and best friend. You're more important than anybody. Ino hid her face, tucking her head under his chin. I like you more than anybody, too. His heart was once again fluttering and he couldn't stop his smile. Even if I can't go to the academy with you, we'll still become genin at the same time. Rubbing his cheek on her hair, he continued, we're the same age and my Ji-chan told me that I'd be allowed to join the ranks when I turn 12 years old. When you graduate, I'd be there, too. Ino looked at him with a wide smile, so there's a chance we'll be on the same team. He gave a sad smile, probably not. The Ino-Shika-Cho formation has been a tradition for decades. I doubt they'd change it this generation. She pouted, so I'm stuck with those two for the rest of my life. He chuckled as she rested her head back on his chest, we won't be teammates, but we'll probably go on some missions together. And when we become genin, we become adults, too. We can decide our own schedule and we can be together anytime we want. Ino sighed happily, just 4 more years to go. He couldn't help but wrap his arms around her, holding her closer to him. I really can't wait. Genin is just the first step, Chunin and Jonin are next. The sooner I become a Jonin, the sooner I can potentially become Hokage. She looked up at him, her chin against his chest. I have these 4 years to train as much as I can without any missions. He smiled down at her, staring into her lovely eyes. I'll become strong, Ino-chan, I promise. I will, too, she whispered, the Hokage's best friend should also be strong, right? He grinned, yep, let's get strong together, Naruto-kun. For now, we are finished with your physical conditioning. Naruto stood tall and straight as he silently referred to Commander Ryu, staring at the imposing dragon mask as the man spoke. Every inch of his body was in pain, all his muscles burning in shreds, his vision fading, and his mind pulsated as if threatening to implode. Still, he stood strong and proud, as he was trained to be. He had no mask of his own yet, but Naruto was an ANBU member through and through. We have reached the peak of what your body could achieve given your young age, any more and we risk injury, and most likely diminishing returns, explained the commander, crossing his arms in thought. The physical strain of our regular training routine will suffice in maintaining this physical standard. We may return to conditioning once every few months, depending on how fast your body matures. Naruto nodded, I understand, sir. Good. Ryu continued, we can now move on to the next step of your training. I am ready, Commander. Ryu nodded, physical conditioning was the first part of your training. It is to simply prepare your body for the intensity and vicissitude of what is to come. You have shown promise beyond my expectation, and Hokage-sama has allowed me to further accelerate this training program. A scroll was unsealed in the commander's hand and he tossed it to the boy, which is why I am giving you this. A new jutsu? Naruto asked as he held the scroll. This is an A-ranked forbidden ninjutsu, Taju Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Naruto's eyes widened as he held the scroll tighter. This is the original version of the Kage Bunshin, invented and personally used by the Nadaime Hokage. Unlike the previous variant you were using, the original has no physical limit. This will allow the user to create as many clones as they want, with the only risk being chakra depletion. As previously discussed, this will not be an issue for you. Naruto stared at the scroll before looking up at his sensei. How many clones am I allowed to make right now? With your chakra reserves and chakra control now, you will be able to create upwards of 500 clones. For the first time in your life, you will feel drained and chakra depleted. He stepped closer to the boy, sighing. Although this jutsu has no limit, I will set a limit at 500. You are not allowed to exceed that number until given further permission. Understood? Yes, sir. Naruto nodded, clutching the scroll in excitement. We will work within the upper limit of that range. Ryu sighed again, perhaps in worry. Naruto thought. Every day, you will aim to create exactly 365 clones. It will take some practice to precisely create that many, but you will grow accustomed to it. This number makes it easy for me to track the amount of training accumulated. This way, one day of training equates to 1 year of training. He pointed over to the far side of the training field, at the large table laid out. To help us count, I've ordered exactly 365 training bands, color-coded into 5 colors. This is meant to compartmentalize your clones, splitting them into 5 groups of 73, each group being able to learn on their own. Am I to start my elemental training? You are, replied the commander with a nod. I expect you will only have 1 chakra nature to start, which will occupy 1 group of clones. A second group of clones will work on your second strongest chakra nature, which I don't expect you to have in the beginning. The third group of clones will focus on more advanced chakra control, which you will need as your chakra reserves grow disproportionately faster than your body. The fourth group of clones will focus on taijutsu. We will work on finding your personal style and utilize this new physical prowess you've achieved. Naruto nodded along, almost overwhelmed by the quick expansion of his training regimen. As for the fifth group of clones and yourself, I will leave with you. The boy looked up in surprise. Ultimately, I am focusing on teaching you the basics, building your foundation. Your future specialty, your main focus, I'll need you to discover on your own. Whether you want to focus on Fuinjutsu, Kenjutsu, or any combinations of any of them all, use these clones and decide for yourself. Naruto saluted the commander, permission to begin training immediately. Granted. Learning the Taju Kage Bunshin no Jutsu was easy enough, there was scarcely any difference from the variant, in fact it had fewer hand signs and was entirely dependent on chakra reserves. With Naruto's new level of chakra control, and with him growing accustomed to using Kage Bunshin, it only took the boy an hour to adequately perform the jutsu. With a cloud of smoke, the training ground was filled with his clones, all dressed in white and black armor stretching to the far side of the room. Each clone took a training band for themselves with at least a few dozen clones left without. He had made over 400 clones. But before long, 365 clones stood before the original and Commander Ryu, separated by color of band, all staring at them. The commander made 2 clones of his own and they stood before the blue-banded clones and the black-banded clones. Blue-banded clones will follow me to the ANBU training field 3. Announced one of the commander's clones, you are going to be working on chakra control. Some clones muttered about choosing the wrong color as they all sped from the room, racing down the halls in a stampede. Black-banded clones will follow me to training field 8, commanded another of Ryu's clones. We will work on taijutsu. Again, another stampede of Naruto stormed through the underground halls of the ANBU barracks. The original commander turned to the original Naruto, handing him a piece of paper, and Naruto knew exactly what it was. He had been looking forward to this ever since his Ji-chan had explained to him the concept behind elemental training. He quickly took the chakra paper and held it tightly between his fingers, looking up at his sensei for permission. Ryu nodded. Go ahead, channel your chakra through the paper. Yes, sir, he muttered, looking down at the piece of paper. The piece of paper immediately split in half before burning to ash. Naruto watched in widened eyes, surprised at the outcome. He looked up at the commander, but the man's eternal dragon mask blocked his expression. Though his silence spoke volumes, and Naruto waited in excited silence for Ryu to speak. You have a natural affinity to two chakra natures, which is significantly rare for someone your age. Fire and wind, a powerful combination. If you can utilize both elements, you will be able to fight effectively in close, mediate, and long-range battles. Wind can also bolster fire, potentially doubling your destructive capabilities. Naruto shook in excitement and could barely keep himself from cheering. This is a surprise, but a welcomed one. Making another 2 clones, Ryu sent them to the red-banded clones and white-banded clones. Even the colors match well. Naruto smiled with a nod. Red-banded clones will follow me to Training Field 1, came the command of Ryu's clone. We will be working on Fire Elemental Chakra. White-banded clones will come with me to Training Field 2, said the other clone. We will work on Wind Chakra. The 2 groups of grinning and cheering clones sped out of the room, flooding the hallways again. Naruto chuckled at the scene, almost wanting to follow them. He had wanted to learn about elemental manipulation for years, but now he had to wait until his clones dispersed in order to know. Fire and wind. He had wondered for so long about his chakra nature, and now he had to. He couldn't help but wonder what his clones would be learning. Chibi, came the voice of the original commander. I leave this to you now. The yellow-banded clones are yours to command and you can use this training field here. You may choose to focus on whatever you want. You may change subjects and switch fields. Feel free to explore your options. As long as you are learning, whether it be new subjects or just about yourself, it is not a waste of time. He crossed his arms again. I must report to Hokage-sama. My clones will disperse your clones when they're finished, so take your time here and I'll let you decide on when to stop. I understand, Commander. He bowed as Ryu vanished. Thank you, sir. Naruto faced his remaining clones and smirked. Well, I think you all know what we'll be doing. Hi. Naruto had been exhausted before, or so he had thought. In the boy's short life, he had been training for years. He had sparred countless times with his siblings, been taught all sorts of interesting and cool techniques, and had even trained a few times with the Hokage himself. He thought he understood exhaustion after all he had been through, but those were but hiccups compared to actual exhaustion. He felt empty. You shouldn't push yourself too hard, Naruto-chan. Naruto could barely hear the sweet voice of his Yugao as he slumped against the dinner table. He had anticipated some fatigue and had the foresight to wait until he was with his siblings in the cafeteria before his clones dispersed, but what came was a mountain of pain. While waiting for his food, his eyes rolled behind his head and he briefly passed out on the table. He woke up to the entire room filled with his concerned siblings around him, all keeping a safe distance in order to give him some breathing room. Only Yugao and Kaka ni were beside him. This is the first time I've ever seen you like this, Chibi. He felt Kakashi ruffle his hair and he tried to sit up. Even pushing himself up was straining, but he managed to sit up with a groan. He managed a small smile for his siblings, his smiling growing at the sight of them all sighing in relief. Most of them returned to their seats, but still looked over at him concerned. He waved them off, returning to sipping on his juice through a straw. Finishing his cup with a slurp, he sighed. I'm okay, he muttered, his vision clearing more. It's getting easier. Commander Ryu told me of your new training method. Kakashi rested his chin on his hand, leaning on the table. Quite ingenious, but practically suicidal for the vast majority of people. I honestly wasn't sure if you could take it, but I guess I was wrong. I still think this is too reckless. Yugao pulled Naruto closer and kissed his hair. Naru-chan is still a child. He may have potential, but there's no need to push him this much. Naruto rested against Yugao's shoulder. I'm okay, Nei-chan. I was too excited and pushed myself more than I should have. I'm just not used to using so many clones. As soon as I get used to it, I would be able to brace myself for the recoil. Yugao sighed. You passed out, Naru-chan. You never get tired, and you pass out. This is a dangerous amount of fatigue for one day of training. It's technically 1 year of training. Kakashi smiled at the pair. Chibi did 1 year's worth of training in 1 day and only pass out for a few seconds. That's quite an accomplishment already. Not to mention that his chakra levels are already replenishing. He tapped his headband. I made sure to check with my Sharingan. Yugao sighed again as Naruto gave a weak grin. Give him a few more hours and he'll be bouncing off walls again. Yep, chirped the boy, smiling up at his sister. Don't worry, Nei-chan. She kissed his head again. Fine, but I'm watching you. Once Mizu, Nana, and Shiki come home, they'll be on you like hawks, too, so you better not take it too far again. Naruto nodded. I promise I won't. How do you feel? Asked Kakashi. Your exhaustion, I understand, but what about your memories? Have you organized them yet? Most of them. Naruto grunted a little in pain. There were a lot of clones, but they were only working on 5 things. Their memories pretty much pieced themselves together immediately. Kakashi nodded as Yugao pulled the boy closer. There's still a bit of overlapping and confusion, but Commander Ryu taught me how to meditate before bed to organize my thoughts. I should be able to clear my head tonight. Good, because the commander will have you do this again tomorrow. Yugao winced. Every day, every weekday, answered Naruto. I get the weekends to myself. Kakashi chuckled. Of course, not even the commander will get in the way between you and your Ino-chan. Naruto's eyes widened at the mention of his best friend. I almost forgot. Is Tenzo-ni back yet? I need his help. Yeah, Team RO all returned last night, answered Kakashi, his brow raised curiously. What do you need from him? Naruto grinned. I am working on a project for myself. It involves a tree, so I really need Tenzo-ni. I guess if he's not here, muttered the ANBU captain as he looked around the room, then he's in his room. Probably trimming his bonsai again. I'll go find him. Before Yugao could stop him, his stomach growled loudly. He groaned and slumped. I'll go find him after dinner. Nei-chan, he whined, what is taking so long? Yugao giggled and hugged him close. It's dinner rush, Naru. Naruto found himself missing the Akimichi onigiri a lot. Another day passed and Naruto was once again groaning in pain. This time he had dispersed the clones one group at a time, leaving 5 minutes rest in between each group. The memories no longer overlapped and they all organized themselves almost immediately. His body was still strained, but his mind and vision were clear. A few more days of this, he should be able to recover normally. A few more years of this, he might be ready to become Jonin. Leaving his aspirations aside, Naruto grunted as he stepped into the evening air, the orange glow of the slowly setting sun warming his exhaustion. Are you sure you can walk that far? Yes, Tenzo-ni. Naruto looked up at his brother with a grin. This is nothing compared to yesterday. I can carry you if you're too tired. He nearly pouted. I'm not a little kid anymore. Tenzo chuckled. You used to beg me for piggyback rides. He sighed and shook his head. Kids grow up so fast. Just come on, Ni-chan. Gritting his teeth, Naruto ignored the soreness and sped off, Tenzo following coolly beside him. His body was working overtime to recover his chakra reserves and stamina, but he felt it working as he jumped from rooftop to rooftop. The village was becoming familiar to him and he no longer had to pause to figure out where he was, and very soon they were at his usual park. It was not nearly as busy on a weekday evening, but there were still plenty of people around. Slipping through the shadows, Naruto maneuvered himself behind every prying eye, Tenzo effortlessly doing the same behind his brother, the two ANBU trained shinobi not stopping until reaching the tall oak tree. Here we are. Naruto panted as he happily pointed at the tall oak. This is the tree. Tenzo shrugged and nodded. Yeah, this is a strong tree. He placed his hand on the trunk. Old, too. At least 100 years old. This tree has been here since the founding of the village. He smiled down at his brother. Might have even been created by the Shodai himself. Some sources say the Shodai had a certain propensity for oaks. Wow, really? Naruto looked odd. Can you feel the Shodai's chakra in it? Tenzo chuckled and shook his head. No, it doesn't work like that. This is just a regular tree now. It might be tougher than trees found outside of Konoha, but just a tree. He grinned. So this is the place, huh? Your little personal home with your girlfriend. Naruto blushed. She's my best friend, Ni-chan. Ah, yes, Tenzo nodded sagely. She's just a girl who is your friend. Now please help me. Tenzo rubbed Naruto's head, chuckling at his pout. Fine. He cracked his fingers and looked around. I'm in my civilian clothes right now, so stand guard and make sure no one sees. He turned to the tree. It's not crowded here, but we can never be too careful. Naruto nodded, stretching his senses to his limit. There are a few people around, but they are far enough away. None of them are walking to this direction, he muttered, his eyes closed as he searched with his chakra. We are about a kilometer away from the park, so the few people there shouldn't see us in any detail. Tenzo nodded. Good. Naruto watched as his brother jumped into the tree, blending perfectly in the green and brown. Dutifully, the boy turned to guard the area, his chakra still searching frantically around them for any activity. Thankfully, there was none, but he felt his brother's chakra spike. Still focusing his sensory abilities, Naruto turned to watch his brother work. His eyes widened in awe as he watched the branches of his favorite tree become malleable. Some branches grew and stretched until they attached together, merging into a structure. It grew and expanded under the canopy, forming into sides and frames. In under 10 seconds, hidden under the large and thick canopy, was a large treehouse. Naruto smiled brightly at the sight. It was beautiful. Using the central trunk as a pillar, the house formed around it and connected nearly all surrounding branches together to form a solid and flat floor, perfectly square around the trunk. Walls sprouted along the sides, made of polished wood, shiny and smooth, reaching nearly the top of the canopy before connecting back to the trunk. His brother was not finished, as a large circle was cut from each side of the 4 walls, making 4 windows for natural light. Then a base door was cut into the floor, wooden hinges allowing it to open and close with a wooden lock to lock. The door was made perpendicular to the trunk of the tree, where slowly, a ladder pattern was cut into the thick bark, forming an easy access way to the door. In a puff of smoke, Tenzo appeared next to Naruto, arms crossed. What do you think? I could have made it fancier if I had more time, but it should do for a playhouse. It's amazing, muttered Naruto softly, looking up at his brother with a smile. You're amazing, Ni-chan. Tenzo chuckled and ruffled his hair. Anything for my little brother. I can't believe you made it so fast. Making it is the easy part. Tenzo hummed in thought. How do you plan to hide it? It can't be a secret fort if everyone can see and find it. Naruto grinned and revealed a new seal on his arm, this one on the top of his forearm in the shape of the Konoha leaf. Tapping it, he unsealed a stack of tags, all freshly drawn and sealed. I've been using my personal training time to create these new seals for the treehouse. It took me and all 73 of my yellow-banded clones 2 whole days to complete. Tenzo sighed. Naruto, you're supposed to be working on serious things, not things to impress your girlfriend with. She's my best friend. Naruto exclaimed with a grunt, and these are very useful in battle situations. Really? Asked Tenzo with a coy smirk. What do they do? Come on, I'll show you. Looking around before moving, they ran up the tree and into the treehouse. Naruto marveled at the intricacy of the completely wooden door mechanic and was practically bouncing off the wooden walls in excitement. It was even more amazing on the inside. Perfectly smooth and polished wood on all sides with a bird cage pattern forming on the walls leading up to the tipped ceiling. Even the flooring matched the hardwood floors of their living quarters at the barracks, not to mention that the entire house smelled of delightful vanilla. This is amazing. When I retire from ANBU, I can be a carpenter. Tenzo smirked, but never mind that. Hurry up and show me your new seals. Okay. Naruto started as he held his first seal between his fingers. This here is just your standard silencing seal. He attached one seal to each of the four walls, so no matter how loud it gets in here, so one will hearing anything on the outside. Tenzo stifled a laugh. Yep, standard practice. What's not standard about this is I will also attach a sound seal on the outside of the treehouse. I made this originally to prank Toru Ni for his snoring, but this is more practical. Tenzo chuckled, but continued to listen. This seal takes the recorded sound sealed within it and plays it out like a speaker. I've recorded ambient sound around this park for an hour. It will loop and replay the same sound over and over again, so not only will no one hear anything inside the house, but the house will also not block any of the usual sounds people would hear under this tree. Okay, you're think thoroughly. This next one doesn't really have a name yet, but it's meant to slowly release a scent into the air. Tenzo looked intrigued and stepped closer. You can see that this one is double-sided. On one side, the seal is designed to seal inside it the scent of whatever it is attached to. Each side is connected to each other, and the other side takes the sealed scent and replicates it in mass quantities before releasing it into the air. Naruto reached out one of the four windows and attached the seal on the outside of the wall. This is a white oak tree, so it smells faintly of vanilla and is earthy. By attaching it to the outside, it will absorb the natural scent of the wood and expand it out, providing a cover for the people inside the house. This could be useful under very specific circumstances, Tenzo admitted, like if you were hunted by blind ninja hounds. I'm not finished, Ni-chan, cried the boy, making his brother laugh. We've so far blocked out sound and smell. Next we will block out our chakra signatures. Naruto smirked as Tenzo raised a brow. This is what I call a chakra expansion seal. It attaches to a chakra signature and enlarges its signature. I made this a long time ago, but it's not useful at all in combat situations, so I forgot about it. What I didn't figure out was that everything in nature has chakra flowing through them, including trees. Okay, muttered Tenzo as he watched Naruto reach out the window again and attach the tag to the tree. This seal will attach itself and leach into the chakra network of the tree, greatly amplifying its signature. It doesn't make the chakra stronger or anything, but it expands the tree's natural chakra aura significantly. Normally, the tree's natural chakra aura would only cover itself around its branches, but now, I've expanded it to cover everything under its canopy, effectively hiding our chakra signatures. Tenzo hummed. I guess this could fool some novice sensors, but against more advanced users, it would still stand out too much. And if a Hyuga would see it with their Byakugan, they'd see an abnormally large tree, which would also stand out. True, but this is just the start. Naruto grinned. The second last seal of the day, this is the one I spent the last 2 days making. Tenzo chuckled. Let's see it. Here it is, a portable genjutsu generator. The boy smirked as Tenzo stepped closer to look. I've always wondered if I could ever use genjutsu with my chakra reserves. A few days ago, I realized that I actually don't have to cast the genjutsu myself, but seal it within a seal. How so? We cast genjutsu by projecting our chakra in a very specific and precise way into an enemy's chakra network. This complexity is usually done by hand signs and very precise chakra control, which I found I can easily replicate on paper. Naruto held his seal in his hand, and it was much larger than the rest, and was filled with inscriptions Tenzo didn't recognize. What you see here is the hand signs for the first half of the genjutsu. Megan, Jubaku Satsu, tree binding death, layered in seal script. If I send chakra through this tag, which will only take a fixed amount of chakra, only enough for the jutsu, and channel it through these layers, I am essentially forming and molding the chakra as if I am forming the hand signs. Tenzo's eyes widened. This seal will then cast this genjutsu on anyone who looks at it, but I thought that wasn't good enough. The seal is small and not eye-catching, but there is a way around it, a way to supplement it. What I can do is connect this seal with the other seals I placed around this place by chakra string. By connecting it to the scent seal and the sound seal, I can make anyone who smells or hears any of my seals experience this genjutsu. He smirked. Even better is the chakra expansion seal. By connecting this genjutsu to the expanded chakra of the tree, the entire tree becomes the visual conduit of the genjutsu, meaning that anyone looking at this tree would experience the genjutsu. Naruto, whispered Tenzo, jaw slightly dropped. Of course, this particular genjutsu isn't dangerous. It will only cast an illusion of what this tree used to look like, so most people who would walk by, whether they see, smell or hear anything coming from this tree, they will fall under my genjutsu. Naruto smiled proudly. Individually, these seals aren't very useful, but when I combine all of them together like this, it becomes a multi-layered security system. Started Tenzo, how long can these seals last? On their own, not very long, only a couple of hours. If I'm in the treehouse, I can easily refill the chakra inside the seals myself, but if I'm away, they won't last long. This is amazing. Naruto grinned. Oh, I'm not done. My last seal of the day. The chakra battery. Tenzo knelt down to look, staring closely at another large seal. This one is by far the simplest, but it completes the seal. You are looking at a simple explosive tag, just with a different outlet. A regular explosive tag stores chakra, usually Kaden chakra, and releases it all in one instant, causing an explosion. This one stores general chakra, no nature specified, and is altered to release the chakra in a controlled, steady flow. Naruto placed it on the ground next to the genjutsu generator. By connecting this to the genjutsu generator and the other seals, the battery will feed its chakra into them, essentially increasing the entire system's operational time to over a day. Of course, it depends on how much chakra I seal into the battery, but for me, it's just a very small amount. Tenzo only looked on in shock, making Naruto smile. Now, let's activate all of them. Forming a hand sign, Naruto flared his chakra and activated all his seals, all connected to each other by chakra string. The genjutsu generator was attached to the floor of the treehouse, the battery right next to it, both attached by chakra strings that led to each silencing seal, sound seal, scent seal, and chakra expansion seal. All glowed with a soft blue as they activated, casting the complete illusion of the senses. With this on, Ino-chan and I can do whatever we want in here and no one will know. Tenzo stared down at his brother, wondering if his desire to have privacy with his girlfriend seriously made him invent one of the most versatile, ingenious, possibly life-saving seal system Konoha had ever seen. With this system, camping out in the open during missions would no longer be an issue. Entire buildings could be hidden with it. It was a simple concept, just hiding the plain sight. More importantly, the fact that Naruto was able to recreate the molding effects of hand signs in his seals, effectively allowing him to seal and release jutsu by tag.